From the late 16th to the early 17th century, Scotland was engulfed in a witch hysteria that led to the persecution and execution of countless individuals. Join us as we explore 11 infamous Scottish witch trials that paint a vivid picture of this dark period in history. Agnes Sampson, the wise wife of Keith. Our journey begins with Agnes Sampson, known as the wise wife of Keith. In 1591, she faced a trial during the intense witchcraft hysteria of the time. Agnes Sampson was a woman accused of practicing witchcraft. Her trial took place in a period marked by a deep-rooted belief in the supernatural, and it was influenced by King James VI's quest to eradicate perceived threats to his reign. Agnes Sampson faced a slew of accusations, including predicting deaths, using familiar spirits, and even attempting to harm the king through her supernatural powers. Her trial served as a chilling example of the superstitious climate of the era. The outcome of Agnes Sampson's trial was grim. She was convicted on multiple charges related to witchcraft and subsequently sentenced to the ultimate punishment for a witch during that era, the stake. Meg Dow, accused child murderer. Next, we have the story of Meg Dow, whose trial in 1590 was not only about witchcraft but also the cruel murder of 2 infants. Meg Dow's trial exemplifies the superstitious climate, and the fear of malevolence that gripped Scotland during this era. Meg Dow faced serious accusations, which included practicing sorcery, witchcraft, and even the brutal murder of 2 young infants. One of the victims was the child of Befi Ray in Gilmertoun. The trial was a spectacle of the era's beliefs and fears, with accusations ranging from supernatural activities to the heinous act of child murder. Despite the shocking nature of the accusations, it was a period where witch trials often led to dire consequences for the accused. The verdict was damning. Meg Dow was convicted of the crimes brought against her and sentenced to a gruesome execution. She was to be taken to the Castle Hill, Edinburgh, tied to a stake, and then her body would be burned to ashes, with her earthly possessions confiscated. Jonet Grant, and Jonet Clark. In another grim chapter of Scottish witch trials, we encounter Jonet Grant and Jonet Clark, accused of a series of grievous crimes during 1593. Their trial took place on August 17 and served as a harrowing example of the superstitious climate of the era. The charges brought against Grant and Clark ranged from the supernatural, such as summoning the devil and bewitching individuals, to more tangible crimes like livestock mutilation and murders. Notably, Grant was accused of the witchcraft-related murder of Alexander Bercromby of Lay. The accused vehemently denied these charges and proposed to undergo an life, a trial by ordeal. However, their fate was sealed when they were found guilty. Grant was held responsible for multiple offences, including murder through witchcraft, and Clark was found guilty of several crimes, such as murdering John Lefley of Wards through witchcraft. The trial culminated in a gruesome sentence, typical of the witch trials of that era. Both individuals were sentenced to be taken to the Castle Hill of Edinburgh, where they would meet their fate at the stake, being burned alive. Furthermore, all their belongings were seized and repurposed for the sovereign's use as a consequence of their convictions. Bessie Roy, the exception. Bessie Roy's case stands out as an exception in the history of Scottish witch trials. In the late 16th century, when the witch trial era was at its height, Bessie Roy found herself on trial for a series of grave accusations related to witchcraft. The charges against her were notably multifaceted. Accusations included creating an enchanted circle in the earth, using spells and incantations to harm individuals, and even stealing the milk of a destitute woman who had sought assistance. These accusations were part of a broader pattern of witch trials during this period, marked by the prevailing superstitions, societal tensions, and a general fear of individuals perceived as practicing the dark arts. In such an environment, the outcome of a witch trial was often bleak for the accused, as many faced severe punishments, including execution. However, What sets Bessie Roy's case apart is the surprising verdict of innocence. Despite the gravity of the accusations and the pervasive fear of witches, the jury found Bessie Roy innocent, and acquitted her of all charges. The reasons behind her acquittal are not entirely clear, but it is possible that a lack of concrete evidence, witnesses, or the influence of prevailing attitudes in the specific region where the trial took place played a role in this unexpected verdict. Nevertheless, Bessie Roy's case remains a remarkable exception in the history of witch trials, demonstrating the unpredictability of such proceedings and the occasional triumph of reason and justice over mass hysteria. Barbara Nieper, seeking witchcraft help. In 1591, Barbara Nieper, the wife of Archibald Douglas, a resident of Edinburgh, found herself in the centre of a legal maelstrom. She was accused of engaging in witchcraft-related activities, primarily consulting with a reputed witch named Annie Samphone, with whom she sought help to protect and manipulate the emotions of Dame Jean Lyon, Lady Angus. This assistance was allegedly aimed at keeping Lady Angus from harm and securing her affections, a common motif in witchcraft accusations. The trial occurred in the context of a broader European witch hunt craze, with Scotland being no exception. Accusations of witchcraft were taken seriously, often leading to harsh punishments. In Barbara Nieper's case, the jury found her guilty of several witchcraft-related charges, including consorting with witches and seeking their assistance. The verdict resulted in a gruesome outcome. As per the King's Chancellor's directive, she was to be executed by burning at Castle Hill in Edinburgh, with her movable possessions seized by the Crown. Barbara Nieper's claim of pregnancy temporarily delayed her execution, highlighting the brutal nature of these trials and their often devastating consequences for those accused of witchcraft. Alisoun Joly, an unexpected acquittal. Alisoun Joly's trial took place in 1596, a period marked by a wave of witchcraft trials and hysteria across Europe. She was accused of witchcraft and sorcery, specifically in connection with the alleged murder of Isabel Hepburn, the wife of John Edmeftoon in Fala. Alisoun Joly was accused of harboring a deep-seated hatred toward Isabel Hepburn, allegedly driven by a property dispute over an acre of land. Alisoun Joly was accused of conspiring with Jonette Stratown, a confessed witch, to bewitch and cause the death of Isabel Hepburn. The prosecution produced a confession from Jonette Stratown, who claimed that Alisoun Joly had compelled her to perform the malevolent acts. Despite the gravity of the charges, the jury, known as the Assize, ultimately found Alisoun Joly innocent. This verdict was delivered by Sir James Newtoun, the Chancellor of the Assize. Alisoun Joly was acquitted of all the crimes listed in the indictment. Christiane Stuart, A Grim Fate. In the late 16th century, specifically in 1596, Christiane Stuart found herself at the center of a witchcraft trial, showcasing the paranoia and persecution of individuals accused of practicing witchcraft. Christiane Stuart was accused of being involved in the murder of Patrick Ruthven through witchcraft. The trial unfolded through a series of depositions given by Christiane Stuart herself, taken on different dates in August and September of 1596. These testimonies purportedly confirmed her complicity in bewitching Patrick Ruthven, and her involvement in his murder. After thorough deliberation, the jury found Christiane Stuart guilty of the charges. She was declared fillet, culpable, and convict of both bewitching Patrick Ruthven, and being complicit in his murder through witchcraft. As a result, she received a grim sentence. Christiane Stuart was ordered to be taken to the Castle Hill, where she would meet a gruesome end by burning at the stake. Her movable property was also confiscated for the king's use. Christian Livingstone, Jonette Stuart, Printcombe Sackler, and Bessie 8K, group accusations. In 1597, during a period of intense witch trials, 4 individuals, Christian Livingstone, Jonette Stuart, Printcombe Sackler, and Bessie 8K, found themselves on trial in Edinburgh, Scotland. They were accused of practicing witchcraft and sorcery, with charges ranging from curing diseases through supernatural means to impersonating witches and offering false remedies. The trial took place during a time when witch hunts were rampant across Europe, fueled by superstition, fear, and a belief in the supernatural. In this particular case, the accused individuals were alleged to have given themselves out as witches who possessed the power to heal various ailments. They were accused of using dubious methods, including passing individuals through a circle of woodbine while reciting a particular incantation, using green guile, possibly green wool, and concocting mixtures involving quicksilver, all of which were believed to have magical properties. The trial concluded with a harsh and brutal sentence. The accused were found guilty and condemned to be executed by hanging, followed by the burning of their bodies. Furthermore, all their belongings were seized as forfeit. Isabel Greersaux, a grave verdict. The trial of Isabel Greersaux took place in the early 17th century. She was accused of various acts related to witchcraft and sorcery. The reasons for her trial included allegations that she had caused fear and harm to several individuals in her community. She was accused of using devilish means, such as transforming into a cat, accompanied by other cats, and causing disturbances in a man's house. The devil was said to have appeared in her presence. She was also accused of cursing and causing severe illnesses to her victims, including one man named William Burnett. Moreover, she was alleged to have bewitched a brewing of ale, turning it foul and undrinkable, and causing suffering to her neighbors. The outcome of Isabel Greersaux's trial was a guilty verdict. The jury found her culpable of all charges, and she received a grim sentence. She was to be taken to the Castle Hill of Edinburgh, where she would be executed by being burnt at the stake. Following her death, her body was to be burned, and her movable property was to be confiscated for the king's use. Bejes Todd, accused witch coven member. Bejes Todd's trial, which occurred in the early 17th century, was a harrowing episode in the history of witch trials. She stood accused of practicing sorcery and witchcraft, along with several other individuals, at a time when such allegations carried severe consequences. The trial took place in Llangnidre, and Bejes Todd faced a range of grave charges. The primary accusation against Bejes Todd was her involvement in a coven of witches who met at Dean Fute of Llangnidre. They were said to have made pacts with the devil, drawn cats through a crook, and cast spells. The text mentions that Bejes Todd was chastised by the devil for her tardiness, highlighting the superstitions and supernatural beliefs of the era. Additionally, Bejes Todd was accused of causing harm through her witchcraft, specifically targeting Alexander Fairlie, and his son with an unknown illness. Her intervention in the recovery of the young boy was seen as evidence of her witchcraft. The trial concluded with Bejes Todd being found guilty of the charges, and she received a grim sentence. She was to be executed by burning at the stake on the Castle Hill of Edin, while her property was to be confiscated. Grisel Gairdner, accused of malevolent powers. In our final segment, we unravel the story of Grisel Gairdner, whose trial took place during a period marked by a high prevalence of witchcraft accusations. Although the specific year is not mentioned in the provided text, Grisel Gaitzik, a woman from Newborough, found herself on trial for a series of alleged witchcraft and sorcery offences. The charges against her were severe and included causing severe illnesses, madness, and even death through her purported supernatural abilities. These accusations were made by individuals who claimed to have been affected by her alleged sorcery, such as Alexander Wentoun, William Anderson, and James Anderson. The trial was a reflection of the widespread belief in the existence of witches and their malevolent powers during this historical period. The proceedings included legal arguments about the relevancy of the charges, the composition of the jury, referred to as Alfief, and the involvement of various individuals in the prosecution and defense. Ultimately, the jury found Grisel Gaitzik guilty of the crimes outlined in her indictment. As a result, she received a harsh punishment, which involved being hanged and then having her body burned. Her property and possessions were also confiscated for the crown. And there you have it, the stories of 11 infamous Scottish witch trials, each a dark and harrowing chapter in the history of persecution, fear, and superstition. The Scottish witch trials of the late 16th and early 17th centuries represent a grim period in history when many innocent lives were lost. We hope this video has shed light on this dark era, and the trials that have left a lasting mark on Scotland's history. If you found this video informative and thought-provoking, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more captivating historical content.